Hey everyone, it's Michelle Malkin, and I wasn't planning on doing this. Of course, if you joined me earlier this afternoon, we had a fantastic panel of ladies for Malkin Live. Cassandra Fairbanks, Faith Goldie, and Ashley Ray Goldenberg joined me, and you can watch that on my Periscope as a replay, or go to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Michelle Malkin. But this is a Friday night that has turned into an absolute nightmare across the country. Once again, America is on fire. So that is what I'm calling this edition of Malkin Live, America on Fire. And I am not going to hide my disappointment and, yes, to a certain extent, my disgust that President Trump and this White House did not take the very crucial opportunity and seize the moment this afternoon to come down on the side of law and order. Isn't that why we elected this president? Isn't this the contrast that he drew so clearly and so eloquently and so explicitly during the campaign? We voted for a man who promised to finish the wall and secure the border. We voted for a man who was going to stand up in favor of our immigration and customs enforcement agents. And very, very strikingly, of course, we voted for a man unlike his predecessor who was going to stand on behalf of law enforcement. And you'll remember, some of you may remember, that I led a small little coalition of Back the Blue proponents who were outraged when President Obama refused to honor the more than half dozen cops who had been shot in Dallas as retaliation for many of the kinds of conflagrations that we're seeing now. And this little band of pro-police activists and I, including Rob O'Donnell from Brothers Before Others, as well as Cameron Gray, and many retired as well as active duty law enforcement and their families who joined us, brought our little blue lanterns and little blue flashlights and lit the White House blue. And when President Trump took office, it was one of his first acts. It was a small, symbolic, but very important, morally important gesture when he lit the White House blue in honor of police officers who died protecting and serving our country. And now law enforcement officers across the country are facing the same kind of paroxysms of violence that we have seen over and over and over again. Paroxysms of violence and so-called civil unrest that are never punished but are always rewarded. Rewarded with Senate hearings. You know, like the one that Lindsey Graham, the Republican from South Carolina, has just announced that he is going to hold in the coming weeks. That's the reward you get, right? Never anything that will actually delve into the truth about the statistics on crime and race and the actual reality, as opposed to false narratives of so-called police brutality. Of course, these riots get rewarded with billions and billions and billions of dollars, which amount to reparations, let's face it. That's what we're talking about here. And bribery, right? Tens and tens of billions, hundreds of billions of dollars in recovery aid after the South Central Los Angeles burned to the ground in ashes. So many innocent homeowners and innocent business owners who lost their livelihoods, innocent people who lost their lives. I cut my teeth, as I have mentioned earlier in one of my Malkin Live shows, in the aftermath of the Rodney King riots. I started my career in Los Angeles in the fall of 1992. And pick up the pieces, it never happened. But you know what did happen? Agitators, race demagogues like Maxine Waters rose to power. And here we are, more than a quarter century later. It's almost been 30 years since the LA riots, and the same cycle has repeated itself. There have been notable moments in American history when we've had true leaders who've stood up to anarchy, who stood up on behalf of law and order. And I've noted a couple of them. There was a speech that Ronald Reagan gave very significantly when he brought down the hammer on the rioters at the University of California and Berkeley. He had basically been talking face to face with one of the so-called free speech protesters, rioters. And he essentially said, no, we don't negotiate with the likes of you. No, we will not cede. We will not capitulate to mob rule. And he asserted his power, and it led to people putting their trust in Ronald Reagan as a leader. Pat Buchanan also gave a speech at the 92 Republican National Convention, laid it out as well. And if any of you who follow me on Twitter also follow the invaluable Twitter account Columbia Bugle, he posted an excerpt of that speech this morning. And so when I think about how Reagan responded to the Berkeley mob, and when I contemplate the eloquence that Pat Buchanan showed, and the backbone and the spine and the fortitude with which he confronted the 92 LA rioters, and when I contrast that with a moment that should have happened this afternoon, when all eyes, not just nationwide, but on the world, were on our president. And instead of answering questions, instead of giving a speech in which he condemned unapologetically and without any hesitation or equivocation the violence that has been breaking out, not just in Minneapolis, but across the country over the last 48 hours. This is not new. This didn't just happen. Where has the White House been? I don't have any tolerance for many Trump defenders who tell me that I should be more polite and this is not a moment to criticize the president. Yes, it is. Where is this White House? Where's the plan? We've gotten a couple of, encouraging tweets, threatening tweets from President Trump. And yes, of course, Twitter is going to censor him. Of course, they're going to stifle him. Of course, they're going to accuse him of inciting violence when the true inciters of violence are out there threatening all of us. Okay, that just comes with the territory. We just accept that as a fact. This is how the game is played. But that was a moment this afternoon when that White House should have been on full alert and made a statement early on before all of this mess. Friday, it's only 7:22 Mountain Time in Colorado where I am, and Denver is on the verge of conflagration. I'm going to see if I can share my screen here and show you some of what's going on. There are live streams from Minneapolis to Atlanta to Denver. Let's see if I can do this. I want to hear from you. I want to hear your take on what's going on, what you think President Trump should be doing or not doing. I think sitting on his hands and being quiet and running away from questions from the media mob about what's going on was absolutely the wrong thing to do. All right, I'm trying to share this. I need you to let me all know if you can see this. This is a live stream from the George Floyd protest in downtown Denver happening right now. Oh, there we go with the fake-o, hands up, don't shoot. Doesn't matter that the Obama Justice Department itself had debunked this complete lie. It doesn't matter. The lie lives on. As you can see, there's a wide variety of protesters. I see black faces, white faces, many bandanaed faces that would have been bandanaed even despite the pandemic. They're standing on one side of a chain link fence with police on the other. Yesterday, of course, a protester was run over by a woman panicked in the middle of the street downtown. And that protester gave an interview to local media just a couple of hours ago, saying that he would do it again. They're shooting what? They're shooting off their mouths. Purposeful incitements of violence and misinformation. So that's Denver. And now I want to take you to Atlanta. No, let's go to Minneapolis, actually. This is Kyle Hooten. Let's turn him up.
And apply some to your face. That gentleman's done the same thing. I'm trying to hook up an external battery to my phone here so we can continue broadcasting as long as possible.
So this is Alpha News, the great independent news outlet based in Minnesota. And their young reporter, Kyle Hooten, has been broadcasting live for the last couple of hours and got invaluable footage last night and the night before, including being inside the Target, the notorious Target that was looted.
Protesters are surging forward, taking ground rapidly against police. Protesters are surging forward, led by a lone motorcyclist. All right, we're walking right into tear gas. Oh, it's painful. God. Okay, we're walking right into a small cloud of tear gas. Once you've been hit with this stuff once, the second dose really irritates the eyes. Look at that. We got police on the overpass.
President Trump, are you watching this? Where is the National Guard? How much more of this havoc do we need to tolerate before the National Guard comes in?
At least 4 or 5 blocks.
Empty threats are not going to cut it. It's very early in the evening.
All right, guys, we're down to 12% battery on this phone. So I'm going to set up right here and switch out to a different power cell before we continue. Hold a sec.
Yeah, it's in my backpack.
Where?
Just it's
The party's just beginning, folks. This is just the start.
I really want you to put it in your bag. I'm so sorry.
We'll come back to that.
Okay, hold on.
While they get all their tech gear set up. Okay, and now I want to go to the video that a lot of you have likely seen already, but let's just share it together. It's the scene at CNN in Atlanta. So at least there's some silver linings, right, people? Here we go. How amazing is that? Looks like nobody at CNN has called the police because, you know, calling the police will get you nothing but grief. All right? You're not supposed to call the police and complain about this kind of attack. So that would be racist. Racist. So this is the fourth night, actually, of these types of protests since the George Floyd incident occurred on Monday. And as you all know, of course, the officer Derek Chauvin was charged today and arrested in breakneck speed. I guess you could call it Operation Warp Speed. The DA, Mike Freeman, gave his press conference earlier today in which he noted that it was the fastest decision to charge a police officer in that county, Hennepin County's history. And he specifically said that his office was not, quote, insensitive to what was going on in the streets. And that's why we're seeing what we're seeing. Because all of these people are quite aware that local, state, and federal officials are very, quote, sensitive to what's going on in the streets. A license and a green light for mob rule. FCNN. Well, you know, at least they're bringing people together, right? Now, of course, Trump had his tweets labeled and shadow banned and censored for, quote, glorifying violence. And yet here's this, Denver, here's the person who drove over a protester today. Do ya thing. Just one of the many incitements to violence that's allowed on social media, because not all violent threats are equal. Let's see what else we can find in terms of live streams. We're seeing CNN headquarters is trending. Denver protests. Oh, San Jose. That's new. Let's check out San Jose. Great. They've blocked the 101, it looks like. Taking over the streets. You know, just a couple of weeks ago, we couldn't go out in the park. You couldn't take your kids to T-ball without fear of being arrested by police. But here we have the opposite of social distancing and no police in sight. So, no National Guard out restoring the peace in Minneapolis or Atlanta or here in San Jose. And we've got a repeat of the whole jumping on top of a car situation. See this? This TV journalist is actually praising the protesters for cleaning off the car hood after jumping on top of it. Isn't that nice? Let's take a look and see what's going on in Houston. Unbelievable. Oh. We are right in the middle of social justice protesting Friday. This is a Houston police car, patrol car, getting smashed in. And I would have to say that in this particular case, it does not look like Antifa to me. It's nice that everybody's getting sunshine, fresh air, some exercise, cardio activity there, kickboxing. Nice. Not an officer in sight. Where's the National Guard, President Trump? Where is the National Guard? All right, let's look some more. So, honestly, people, I'm so disgusted. I'm so disgusted. We should be having a presidential address to the nation tonight, and instead we have silence from the White House. Where's the plan? Where's the leadership? America is on fire, and the night has only just begun. I hadn't even seen this. I'll share this with y'all. Just browse with me while I'm browsing. So there was a demonstration in Kentucky last night. 7 people shot protesting. Let's see, what is it? Oh, this is a 26-year-old Black woman who was killed in March when police officers entered her house. So it's all just coming together. Let's see where else. We've got live protests. And then, like I promised you, we're going to go back to Facebook as well, where Kyle Hooten is broadcasting for Alpha News. I'm going to try and get him on the air with me after the 8 o'clock hour. I'm going to jump off because I have an interview with Jim Bohannon, the overnight national radio host, and then I'll come back on and hopefully have Kyle join me. Let's see. Let's get back. Here. All right. All right, we're going to go back to Minneapolis.
Again, you guys, protesters are pushing into an area which was previously occupied by police in violation of the quarantine order. Get in the car and zip around to the front.
I don't know which way you want to go. I mean, they're way up there at the front of the line.
Here. Can I run back to your car and grab another battery and then rejoin you? You can take over the Facebook stream.
I can take both of them.
Okay, so let's just switch it to phones. I still need a phone to figure out where you are in a second.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay, guys, so what's going to happen here is I'm going to hand over the Facebook stream to a fellow reporter here. So stay tuned. We're going to be coming back right live. We're going to explore other angles and see what we can set up for a shot.
Okay, they'll be back soon. And I'm back with you. Let's read some comments. As many of you saw, just catching up on the latest Derek Chauvin developments. As I mentioned, of course, he was charged and arrested today. Weird things are coming out about the relationship between Chauvin and Floyd. Apparently, they had worked together as private security or at a restaurant for a significant amount of time. So I guess we'll be finding out more if there was hostility or tension or some long-running feud between the two of them. And then, of course, the autopsy results, which showed that asphyxiation was not the cause of death, and that Floyd had underlying or pre-existing conditions that exacerbated his demise. There's a lot we still don't know. There's a lot that the DA's office and the investigators know that they're not telling us as well. And as usual, these things end up being a hell of a lot more complicated than the simplistic, cartoonish narratives that were fed, that we are always fed at the very start of these things and then calcify and become fossilized, just like we saw with Hands Up, Don't Shoot being chanted by the Denver protesters. Doesn't matter. It never, ever matters what the truth is. Yes, you're welcome. Commenter says, thank you for doing this. Well, you're welcome. How could I not? You know, as long as I have these platforms, as long as I still have a means of communicating with you all, I feel compelled, especially on a night like tonight, to really just join you. I mean, it's not so much some show where I'm talking at you. We're experiencing this together. And if any of you see streams that I should link to or that we should watch together, please feel free to put them in the YouTube comments right now. I'm monitoring more of the YouTube live comments than I am the Twitter comments, but I'll try and get to those as well. I don't really watch the Periscope as I'm doing it. Yeah, Mark R. Watson says the lockdown is over. Yeah, that's exactly right. There's no more self-quarantining for sure. Although I have to say, it seems like the National Guard is quarantining, because where the hell are they? Where the hell are they? You know, in a state like Minnesota, where you've got the hostile state government, you don't have a Republican governor who's at least going to work in some kind of cooperative manner with the feds and the White House. Okay, I understand that. But now, you know, this violence is breaking out in red states and blue states. Of course, mostly blue dot cities in these red states. But nonetheless, we should be seeing more of a leadership role. So my question is, okay, let's see. It's 7:40 Mountain Time now. It is 9:40, nearing almost 10 p.m. Eastern. I sure would like to be a fly in the wall in the West Wing right now. And the ladies and I who did our live stream earlier this afternoon remarked on a very, very interesting Ryan Gudersky tweet. And I'm going to read it to you again, because even as I read this, I had suspected that the squish America Last wing, anti-police, anti-American wing of the swamp that is infested within the White House must be doing battle with whatever vestiges of MAGA are still left in the Oval Office over what the message should be, what steps should be taken, and whether President Trump should be allowed to follow his instincts. We all know what his instincts are. And ultimately, the buck stops with him. But we understand what's actually going on, right? We understand the machinations and the palace intrigue that's going on behind the scenes. You've got these simps, right? The ones who are sympathetic to the social justice warriors and to Black Lives Matter, and who care more about scraping the peanut butter jar, the bottom of the barrel of what they consider, the potential Black votes that they could be winning by pandering to them, and forsaking the vast majority of MAGA voters, whatever their colors are, forsaking them and and blocking President Trump from coming out forcefully against the riots and backing law enforcement. Where is that tweet? Let's see. Oh, I should play for you the Pat Buchanan. We should do the Pat Buchanan thing. Let me bring this up. It just makes me pine for leadership. Let's play this. Here it is from Columbia Bugle. Cue this up.
But out of that awful tragedy, friends, in these wonderful 25 weeks of our campaign, the saddest days were the days of that riot in LA. Worst riot in American history. But out of that awful tragedy can come a message of hope. Hours after that riot ended, I went down to the Army compound in South Los Angeles, where I met the troopers of the 18th Cavalry who had come to save the city of Los Angeles. An officer of the 18th Cav said, Mr. Buchanan, I want you to talk to a couple of our troopers. And I went over and I met these young fellas. They couldn't have been 20 years old. And they recounted their story. They had come in to Los Angeles late in the evening of the second day, and the rioting was still going on. And two of them walked up a dark street where the mob had burned and looted every single building on the block but one, a convalescent home for the aged. And the mob was headed in to ransack and loot the apartments of the terrified old men and women inside. The troopers came up the street, M16s at the ready, and the mob threatened and cursed. But the mob retreated because it had met the one thing that could stop it: force rooted in justice and backed by moral courage. You know, greater.
Force rooted in justice and backed by moral courage. That is what we need. And with that, I'm going to hop on over now. This is breaking news. Cops being attacked in the lobby of the CNN headquarters in Atlanta. Newsroom employees are locked down floors above the riot. Let's listen in on this.
You okay, guys? You have some people are laughing, some people are videotaping. I just threw something on fire.
Throwing incendiary devices.
It's on fire. Shit. Nick, you all right? You okay? You okay? You okay, guys? You all right? Is everyone okay? You all right, William? Okay, we're okay. Our crew's okay. They just threw a firecracker in on us. You have some people are laughing, some people.
Gee, maybe CNN should bring in virulent cop hater Van Jones to comment. Good thing he's not in the building, because you know he'd be locked down and cowering and hoping for law enforcement to protect him too. But he's going to be broadcasting somewhere remotely from his home, safely from his home, and maybe he'll be spouting and more anti-cop vitriol while all the people at CNN in the control room are hiding and praying for the cops to protect them. Great job. Somebody said earlier, looks like chickens are coming home to roost at CNN. Sure looks like it. And what do we have here? I don't know if you've all seen this yet. My just got this in as well. I don't follow Michelle Obama's Twitter feed, but look at this. Like so many of you, she says, I'm pained by these recent tragedies, and I'm exhausted by a heartbreak that never seems to stop. Right now, it's George, Brianna, that's the woman that was killed in Kentucky, and Ahmaud. Before that, it was Eric, Sandra, and Michael. That would be Eric Garner. What was that? Sandra Bland and Michael Brown. It just goes on and on and on. Later, she says here, race and racism is a reality that so many of us grow up learning. Yeah, like the FACO racist incident that she continues to recount about being confronted by some virulent white racist woman who asked her to get something off the shelf because she was tall, not because she was black, and then she rewrote the story when she was doing her book tour. But if we ever hope to move past it, it can't just be on people of color to deal with it. It's up to all of us, no matter how well-meaning we think we might be, to do the honest, uncomfortable work of rooting it out. Self-examination, yes, because she's so brilliant at self-examination. Let's see what else is going on. Oh, I know what else I wanted to do as well. Let's see if we can check back into Minnesota. Yes. Yeah, things are heating up here. All right.
can't breathe. I 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 can't breathe.
It looks like they're breathing fine.
I can't breathe.
These officers are showing incredible amount of
Black lives matter. Black lives matter. Black lives matter. Black lives matter.
Mostly
Black
white,
lives matter.
mostly white virtue signs.
Black lives matter. Black lives matter. Black lives matter. Black lives matter. Black lives matter.
They gotta fight back. No way. You have a choice. No way. History's gonna remember. We know it. Everything. Here's you all have a choice. History's gonna remember the choice you made. All right, folks, welcome back. To those of you that were with us at the last broadcast, our apologies. We had some technical.
So this is also Minneapolis, and this is a very good little tidbit here from a Star Tribune reporter. Let's just listen in. And this is mostly white people in Minneapolis downtown. And as the Star Tribune reporter notes, the 8 p.m. curfew was not a deterrent. They're now chanting F curfew. So they're violating curfew, let alone all of the pandemic era regulations that are supposed to be in place. And once again, here in Minneapolis, no National Guard yet. Okay, what are they waiting for? Well, we know what's going to happen before any enforcement action is going to take place. In about 10 minutes, I'm going to sign off. I'll try and come back on and see if I can get a hold of Kyle Hooten. I'm going to be doing a radio interview with Jim Bohannon, and I will continue to follow this for, a little bit into the night, and bring you up to date on what's going on across the country. And I'm just getting word from my friend, Rob O'Donnell, who I interviewed earlier this week. He's retired NYPD. He's been in situations like this before. He's telling me that the NYPD 88th precinct in Brooklyn is under siege. Let's check it out. Here we go.
You know how to load an insect?
So we got more hands up, blah, blah, blah. Rioters have set fire to a police van. Presumably this is the same 88th precinct of the NYPD. I'm just going to keep repeating it, and I hope that President Trump is listening. I hope that his people are watching all of this that we've been covering here. We need the president to take command. Rob reports just a couple of minutes ago that the CO of the 88th precinct called a 1013 for all available units at the precinct, stating, quote, "The crowd is very violent. Use extreme caution. Triage is being set up for injured cops in the 88 muster room." So you've got CNN journalists hiding out in the Atlanta headquarters. You've got this cavalcade of rioters essentially spitting in the face of cops in downtown Minneapolis. San Jose, the streets and highways are blocked off. Houston, Denver, Columbus, Ohio last night at the state capitol. They were smashing the windows, hurling objects into the windows, taking over the inside of the Capitol. 4 nights of this already. Where's the National Guard? Where is our president? Cops are under siege. Journalists, however you feel about their work, are now under siege. Here from an hour ago, by the way, we hadn't looked at D.C. yet. Okay, it's at their doorstep. Let's go here. How lovely. The barricades. This looks like our familiar black tights. And this is from an hour ago, the White House in lockdown, with the press being told to stay inside. Hide and cower. Okay, haven't we had enough of doing that? Of being locked inside our houses, locked inside our buildings, running away instead of confronting? We need our president. We need our leader backing law and order, not pandering, not worrying about what percent of the black vote he's going to get in November. We need a leader who's not going to tiptoe, who's not going to walk on eggshells, who's going to tell it straight, and who's going to demand that elected officials and law enforcement officials do their jobs and restore the peace and let the police protect and serve as they were sworn to do. I'm going to get off. I have a radio interview. Stay tuned here. I'll come back, see if I can get Kyle Hooten of Alpha News, who's in Minneapolis and has been broadcasting live, to join us with a little interview from the side. Talk to you in a minute.